The most dangerous text for your ego in the entire world is undoubtedly one of the greatest Nididhyasana texts. And that Nididhyasana text is the Avadhuta Gita. Now, what I mean by Nididhyasana is the text that you discover on the cusp or after enlightenment. Now, there are many Nididhyasana texts. The Avadhuta Gita is one, the Ashtavakra Gita is another, the Mandukya Upanishad, the Tripura Rahasya, the Yoga Vasishta. And these texts are usually left for those who have advanced a lot on the spiritual path. Now, there are many wonderful verses within the Avadhuta Gita. And as I explained in the last video on the Avadhuta Gita, we will explore some of the more interesting verses one by one. And today we have a verse which goes into the nature of division and also non-division. Truly, the Atman alone is all, and in it there is neither division nor non-division. It appears to me perplexing to say the Atman exists or the Atman does not exist. So with most verses within the Avadhuta Gita, this is classical non-dualism, Advaita Vedanta. And we see here in the first line, truly Atman alone exists. And so this concept we find in the Avadhuta Gita. So there's an emphasis on keeping your mind on the nature of the self, the undifferentiated consciousness that we call Atman in Sanskrit, which is identical with Brahman, as in the ultimate reality. And so from that place, when we abide in that undifferentiated consciousness, neither division nor non-division exists. It's not a philosophical debate. Neither exist. And this is one of the core aspects of understanding the nature of your true self, because a lot of people, especially in the modern day, cling to their identity as if it's a badge of honor. We may cling to our religion, our race, our gender, our football team, anything about ourselves that defines us as apparently unique and different to the rest. And ultimately, we are all the one consciousness. So a differentiated consciousness is what in Advaita Vedanta they would call the illusion. So that is the jiva, the persona system, the ego. And when we abide in that, we are separate from the ultimate reality of Brahman. And so it's the identity itself which is the illusion. So when you're attached and you're clinging to these aspects, you are essentially in a form of hypnosis because you believe you are separate from the reality and you cling to these things that you think define yourself as different and unique, or in some sense connect you to a group or something of that nature, but that essentially is not the way it is. You're clinging to a group or you're trying to define yourself as unique are both a hypnosis, because your true nature is Atman, which is identical with Brahman. So Atman is actually inexpressible. So no concept of division or non-division is possible in regards to Atman, because in regards to Atman, there is no second object apart from it. It's all non-dual. It's one without a second. And so any concept of division or non-division don't exist from that ultimate state. This is a conceptual framework that our jiva and ego creates to try and frame the reality according to how we like to see it. But from the Atman, you only see reality as it truly is, without any concepts, and division and non-division both subside and essentially don't exist from that ultimate state. So as Dattatreya says, to state either Atman exists or Atman does not exist is an illogical statement, because the isness of reality, the oneness of reality is Atman itself, is Brahman, the ultimate reality. It's one without a second. And so to have a concept of existing and non-existing is still within the field of duality. And I know that this is a little bit of philosophical martial arts by Dattatreya here, but it's something for us to think about, because a lot of the times we get caught in the dualistic perspective on the spiritual path of being bound and seeking liberation, when Advaita Vedanta, the path of non-dualism, is to realize you're already that right now. You're not on a journey to somewhere. The destination is right here and right now. It's not off in the distance. It's not a heaven to experience after birth. It's a heaven that is experienced right here in the present moment, because that's where eternity truly is. It's in the here and now. And so any confusion around whether Atman truly exists or doesn't exist is completely illogical and irrelevant to the nature of your own spiritual path and your process of awakening. And you deepen in the path when you realize that even the concepts of non-existence and existence itself are still, again, in that field of duality, as I mentioned. And so the Avadutta Gita is constantly trying to get us out of dualistic thinking, of this or that. The game of black and white, as Alan Watts put it in the book. And so we're always in this game of this or that, existence or non-existence, division or non-division, and we make this duality within our mind to try and understand reality when the Avadutta Gita puts a complete stop to that way of thinking. And that's why the more you read these verses, the more it brings you back into that nature of the Atman. Now, we use the word Atman to describe that. It's a word to refer to that undifferentiated consciousness, but we can't, in a sense, intellectualize it or conceptualize it, but we can abide in it. And it's in that constant abidance in it that we continually understand the nature of reality. Ramana Maharshi once said that when we continually abide in the Atman, it actually burns all of our vasanas, our habitual ways and latent tendencies. And so when we constantly bring our mind and our awareness back to that beingness within ourselves, the undifferentiated consciousness where neither you and I exist, but we are part of that one consciousness, not even a part of it. See, using the word part of it implies separation. We abide in that. And then the more we abide in that, the more we burn these vasanas of the jiva, of the persona away, which actually purifies our mind and allows us to easily slip into that natural state without having these binding vasanas confuse our mind and having our awareness run here and there with these thoughts we have in our mind, which entangles the awareness within the jiva. And then we lose our way. We lose our abidance in our spiritual practice, our abidance in the nature of the self. And so as Dattatreya is explaining here, we have to really get out of that dualistic thinking. We have to stop this game of either this or that. And when we continually stop that, we come into harmony with what Zhuangzi says in the Zhuangzi text, that when there is no more this and that, we reside in the still point of the Tao and we can see the infinite in all things. And this is exactly what Dattatreya is constantly pushing us towards, constantly reorienting our awareness towards this fact of getting out of this idea of this or that according to your conditioning and your socialization process, so that you can see the ultimate reality as it truly is, because you are abiding in that within yourself. Shanti, shanti, shanti.